Okay, what I'm going to do is finish building this side of the engine, put the cover on. So we start out, I think this is the counterbalancer, and it goes in on the other side of the engine. Goes in on this side. Like that. And that's it. And come back to this side. Got to kind of hold it. And so the first thing that goes on is the gear, and you can see it has a knob and one side is flat, so we put the knob side down, and it will only go on one way. And then once we get that on, we put on, I guess, the balancer, the weight, whatever this is called. And there's a dot on this side and nothing on this side. And you can kind of see how this side has this little wear mark on it. And what we want to do is, there is a tiny hole, or not tiny hole, but there's a hole in the shaft that's supposed to line up with the middle in here. And this will also only go on in one position, and that is the correct position. So if you turn it around to each of the teeth, you'll see that it won't go on until it gets to the right spot, which is right there. And if you notice that there's a dot right there and a dot on the inner side of this gear and on the outer side of this gear. And so this balancer weight goes on, it lines up with the inner dot. So there's the inner dot, and there. Now it's on. Then we can put the bolt on.
The boy was strong and wanted to retaliate, but he was in a foreign country. His new friend pushed the owner aside and pulled the boy outside with him. "You wanted your money," he said. "Tangier is not like the rest of Africa.
There.
This is a port, and every port has its fee."
And you can see how that works.
The boy trusted
now,
his friend.
when we
Helped him out in a dangerous
put
situation.
this gear on, you can see it also has a flat side and a raised side. The raised side goes down, and there's a timing mark. So this timing mark has to line up with the timing mark on the gear, the other gear. And so you can see how, I don't know if you can see that there's a little flat spot in there, and you can see the flat spot on the spindle right there. So that's what's going to line up when we put it on to this one right here. And so, got them lined up. Then we put the circlip on. The boy promised himself that when he returned from Egypt, he would
forestall how much the sword cost, he said to his friend. Then he realized that he'd been distracted for a few moments looking at the sword. His heart squeezed, as if his chest had suddenly compressed. He was afraid to look around because he knew what he would find. He continued to look at the beautiful sword for a bit longer, until he summoned the courage to turn around.
We're going to
All around him
put the Magneto on.
people coming and going, shouting and buying, and the aroma of strange foods, but nowhere could he find his new companion. The boy wanted to believe that his friend had simply become separated from him by accident. He decided to stay right there and await his return. As he waited, the priest climbed to the top of a nearby tower and began his chant. Everyone in the market fell to their knees, touched their foreheads to the ground, and took up the chant. Then, like a colony of workers,
And so,
they dismantled their
you know that there's a little
the sun began its departure as well. The boy watched it through its trajectory for some time
little
until it was
notch
behind the white house
in the spindle,
plaza. He
and
recalled
so
that when the sun
that's
had risen
where
that
this
morning,
little moon
he was on
piece
another
goes.
continent, still a shepherd with 60 sheep, and looking forward to meeting with a girl. That morning he had known everything that was going to happen to him as he walked through the familiar
Then
fields.
we
But now, as the sun began to set, he was in a different country, a stranger in a strange land where he couldn't even
put the
speak the
spindle
language.
on.
He was no longer a shepherd, and he had nothing, not even the money to return and start everything over. All this had happened.
Then we're going to put
He was feeling sorry for himself
the bolt on.
and lamenting the fact that his life had changed so suddenly and so drastically. He was so ashamed that he wanted to cry.
Oh, wait a second. Before we put this on, what we're going to do is we're going to feed the chain through.
He wept because God was unfair, because this was the way God repaid those who believed in their dreams. When I had my sheep, I was happy, and I made those around me happy. People saw me coming and welcomed me, he thought. Now,
Get
I'm
the
sad
timing
and
chain
alone.
on.
I'm going to become bitter and distrustful of people because one person betrayed me.
And
I'm going
what
to
I
hate
do,
those who have found
or
their
what I
treasure
did,
because I never found
was
mine.
I pull the
And I'm
chain
going to hold on to what little I have because
like
I'm too
this,
insignificant to conquer the world.
and then I
He
put
opened
a
his pouch to see what was left of his possessions. Maybe there was a
rubber
bit left of
band.
the sandwich he'd eaten on the ship. But all he found was the heavy book, his jacket, and the 2 stones the old man had given him. As he looked at the stones, he felt relieved for some reason. He had exchanged 6 sheep for 2 precious stones that had been taken from a gold breastplate. He could sell the stones and buy a return ticket. But this time, I'll be smarter, the boy thought, removing them from the pouch so he could put them in his pocket. This was a
So
port.
I'm going to put a rubber band on here,
His friend had told him
and
the port town was not full of thieves.
as soon as I can find one,
Now he understood why the owner of the bar had been so upset. He was trying to tell him not to trust that man. I'm like everyone else. I see the world in terms of what I would like to see happen, not what actually does. He ran his fingers slowly over the stones, sensing their temperature, feeling their surfaces. They were his treasure. Just handling them made him feel better. They reminded him of the old man. When you want something,
and that'll just keep it on there. And so you notice these 2 holes. And what'll happen is once I get a little bit further, once I get the top end on, I will put this end in, and it goes in. Just it'll go in just like that. But I need the top end on. So we're going to put this on.
The old man had said to ask very clear questions. To do that, the boy had to know what he wanted. So the man's blessing was still waiting. He took out one of the stones.
And you see that kind of keeps the chain from popping off. Just a little guide.
His hand into the pouch and he felt around for one of the stones. As he did so, both of them pushed through a hole in the pouch and fell to the ground. The boy had never even noticed that there was a hole in this pouch. He knelt down to find Urim and Thummim and put them back in the pouch. But as he saw them lying there on the ground, another phrase came to his mind.
Already?
Learn to recognize omens and follow them, the old king had said. An omen? The boy smiled at himself. He picked up the two stones and put them back in his pouch. He didn't consider mending the hole. The stones could fall through any time he wanted. He had learned that there were certain things one shouldn't ask about, so as not to flee from one's own personal pleasure. I promised that I would make my own decisions, he said to himself. But the stones had told him that the old man was still with him, and that made him feel more confident. He looked around at the empty plaza again, feeling less desperate than before. This wasn't a strange place. It was a
And
new
so that finishes this side.
What he was wanting was just that, to know new places. Even if he never got to the pyramids, he'd already traveled farther than any shepherd he knew. Oh, if only they knew how different things are, just 2 hours by ship from where they are, he thought. Although his new world at the moment was just an empty mountain,
And so now
he'd already seen it when he was needing his life. He would never forget
we're
it.
going to
He remembered the sword. It hurt him a bit to think about it, but he'd never seen one like it before.
gasket on
He mused about these things. He realized that he had to choose between thinking of himself as
And-
a poor victim of a thief and as an adventurer in quest of his treasure. I'm an adventurer
the cover.
looking for treasure, he said to
And that would complete, well, I need to torque this down, but that'll complete this side. Then all you have to do is just put in the bolts.